Hi, I'm JD Park,
I'm TJ Shelley.
and this is One Stop Real Estate. So today we have a special guest. Her name is Jade Chamberlain. She's a photographer for Vision Real Estate. She does all of their photography, and as you know, Vision Real Estate, we're a pretty big company. We do rentals, we do sales, and so she does all the photos, and that's thousands and thousands of photos. So we're excited to have her. Jade, why don't you go on and start us off and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and kind of how you got into photography in the first place.
Yeah, well, as I said, I'm Jade Chamberlain. I am 22 years old, born and raised in Utah. I love it here. I also just love photography. I started taking photos when I was 13 years old, and like ever since then, I always was taking photos in all of my classes, like throughout junior high and high school. And then after high school, I was working at a garden center and I did their commercial photography for their website and their social media pages. And I did like personal business photography and I did portrait photography. So all the kinds of photography that, I feel like you can try out, I feel like I did.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. And I also grew up, my parents own like quite a few investment properties.
Mm-hmm.
So to bring into like the real estate side of things, like I was always going to my parents with open houses and like I was always helping them with their rentals and stuff. And I always had this passion for real estate as well. And I just ended up seeing this job listing one day and I felt like it was just too good to be true because it combined like real estate, it combined photography, and I just felt like it just was all these passions combined into one, and it was like really exciting for me because I was like, okay, this just works out. And I ended up getting the job. And I self-taught myself real estate photography. So I didn't know how to do the real estate side of things, but I like throughout like all of like my schooling, I learned like the composition of, how to take a photo and how to use a camera. So from there, it wasn't too difficult to figure it out. And I just like used YouTube to teach me how to do it. And I just like took off from there. So it worked out perfectly. And I got to work with social media and a lot of my other jobs. And so I'm grateful to be able to do that in this one as well, because I think it's really fun too.
So your passion for not real estate photography, but photography in general happened when you were young through high school, taking photos, things like that. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you had some work doing other types of photography for businesses. Mm-hmm. How did you get that business? How were you able to connect with those people to say, hey, let me take the photos for your business and things like that?
Yes.
Did you put a portfolio together? What was your strategy to get business?
So when I worked at a garden center, I was just a cashier there, and I noticed that they didn't have much of a social media presence on like TikTok, and that's when it was taking off. This was kind of during like the pandemic,
The beginning stages of TikTok.
And so the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, hey, like this is like a huge platform that I feel like we could capitalize on. And I put together this kind of resume for myself as I was working there, and I was like, I have all this experience from school in photography. Like I was trained to do commercial photography, studio photography, and all that. And I was like, I feel like I could be like an asset to this company and like help you guys also, because they didn't have anyone doing like professional photography of their products. They were just using like the iPhone. And like most businesses that you see. Which, I mean, you can get away with doing it, but I mean, on a website, you want to have some professional photos. So I came to the table with that, and that's how it kind of started from there, like me doing photography in a professional setting outside of school.
Mm-hmm. So you said TikTok. Up to that point, had you dabbled in videography at all, or just strictly photography?
I did like a little bit of videography. I like loved making little videos in high school, like with my friends, and so I was familiar with the editing process, but I like never really made anything like TikToks and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like, it was just like stuff that I filmed on my digital camera, and I kind of just, it was another situation where I kind of had to teach myself, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm saying that right?
Yeah.
How to like navigate TikTok and all that, because that's when it all just like kind of took off. And I think everyone was kind of learning at the same
Absolutely.
time.
So you said that you started off with just your digital camera.
Mhm.
How has your equipment revolutionized over the years? I mean, obviously you started off with something.
Yeah.
And what are you using now?
So it's definitely improved, to say the least. Like, the stuff that we were using was just like the cheapest camera we could find at like Costco,
Yeah.
and then just kind of slowly building up. I've done a lot of different kinds of equipment. Like, I love film, and I love just like even just using little digital point and shoots. But right now for real estate photography, we're using a Sony A7 III, and we did a ton of research on that one to see just like for the price point that we were at, like how it would benefit us with real estate photography. And it's a mirrorless camera, so I don't know if you guys know what that means.
Yeah. What's the difference between mirrorless and non-mirrorless?
So a mirrorless obviously has no mirror in it, so the light just hits the sensor directly, and when you take photos with it, you can hear that it has no not like that extra shutter. I don't know, like, if you guys are familiar with using a camera,
No,
but
not
it's
at all.
it's a lot quieter when you take photos, and it's quicker when it takes photos too. But it's really helpful. Just like the light just hits the sensor, I feel like a lot better, and I feel like it's great for real estate photography. There's a lot of the specifics, but
Gotcha.
I like using mirrorless. DSLRs are great too, but I feel like as an industry, people are more leaning towards mirrorless these days.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's kind of more of like a trend.
Do you feel like the equipment that you have, how important do you feel like that is to, like, I guess specifically real estate photography or other types? Like,
Yes.
do you need for other, like, if you're taking photos of plants or people, different cameras?
Yes, so it all comes down to the lens that you have on your camera with real estate photography. One really important thing is making a room look spacious, and like taking photos of a room, like also keeping the integrity of the house, but making sure that you get like all of the walls you can get in the doors and the closets. So having a wide angle lens is like one of the most important things. Like, you can have, all sorts of cameras, but I think at the end of the
Lens is
day,
more important than
yes. I mean, some people might differ with me on
Yeah.
that, but I feel like for real estate photography specifically, it's like you really need a wide angle lens, or else it's just like you're not capturing like the true essence of the room.
Yeah.
And I feel like people can get a better grasp on
Mm-hmm.
what they're looking at in the photo.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody's seen property photos with a cell phone, because either they've taken photos of it for leasing and renting, or they've seen it while they're looking through Zillow. And can you speak to how successful you've seen photos that you've taken compared to ones that are maybe like a like property that were taken with a cell phone? How
Yes.
big of a impact does it have compared to cell phones?
A huge impact. So I was actually reading about this the other day, and properties that have professional photos taken sell, like, I think it was 33% faster than properties taken with like a cell phone.
The
So
0.5.
yes, the 0.5 photos. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, although it gets the job done,
What
it
was
doesn't.
that percentage again?
I think it was 30. I have it written down. 32% faster.
32%.
Mhm.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Yes. So you really want to take nice quality photos, I think.
Yeah.
And I also said photos that have been on the market with high quality photos, or homes that have high quality photos,
Mm-hmm.
they usually are selling within 84 days. And then properties with photos with low quality take more like 120 days to sell. That was
Wow.
that was to show, like, to give it more of the 32%, just give it a little bit more of like a
Yeah.
Context,
example of that. So it's really important. I think it shows like you representing the property as an owner, as a realtor, whoever you are in the process, it shows that you care when you have high quality photos, because it shows that you will take the time to do things right.
Yeah.
And it just gives people a lot more trust in you.
Yeah. So I know there's something that Vision does that the people listening don't necessarily know, but we actually like to reuse photos. How often do you have to go out to a property, like the same property, as in your experience? Like, do you need to go back if there's already photos? What's been your experience with that?
Yeah, so the criteria that we have set for that is basically like, we want photos to be taken, we want the photo to be represented like exactly how it is. So if there have been like any remodels or even any damage done, like we really want to make sure that we're showing what is truly there, because we don't want to deceive people. We want to make sure that they know what they're getting into. So if the photos were taken like with anything besides like me or our third party photographers like Simple Shoot, we're pretty much just like new photos immediately. Because that means that they're most likely they weren't professional photos, and we want to make sure that we get that done. We really just want to make sure that they're taken within at least like 2 or 3 years of like like we want to make sure that the photos are like no older than like 3 years old, because things change. Walls get painted, kitchens have replacements, and we want to make sure that everything is as updated as we can have it be.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Can you walk us through your typical photography session, whether that's for a sale or with tenants, just kind of your standard process?
So I get to the property. It's really important. I kind of like call it making the house look alive. I do a lot of photos of units that are vacant, so it's kind of harder to make a vacant unit look alive when there's like no furniture and it's, it's empty.
You can't stage it.
You can't stage it. So what I like to do is just open all the windows, make sure that you can see outside, turning on all of the lights, just trying to make it feel as cozy as you can make it feel with what you're working with, making things look clean as well. A lot of that's done like, if there's things that weren't clean when I was there, just like photoshopping it out and stuff. But it's just truly making the property look as like welcoming and alive as you can possibly make it when I get there. And how I take my photos when I'm there, I like to take it in a way that you would tour the home. So when you're looking through the listing, you're not confused. It's like, oh, we're jumping from the kitchen to the basement to the upstairs.
I've felt that before.
You're confused where you are in the photos. You want to make it feel like, okay, you're walking through in like a normal order, It just makes things a lot more clear for people to understand when they're looking at the listing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. TJ brought up staging. Do you recommend staging when you take photos of a property, or do you prefer it vacant?
I like to do both. One thing that we've been seeing a lot more recently is like virtual staging, AI staging, and I'm all for it. I think it's a really great opportunity because I go in when the unit's vacant and I get all the photos with nothing in it, and it's like, okay, you can understand the layout a lot better, I feel like, when everything's out of the house. But then you can go in and edit in so easily these days with AI furniture, and people are like, oh, this is how
it could be.
Yes, it makes you can totally understand the flow of like how you would live there, and I feel like it totally helps out, and I'm like, I'm all for AI these days with the staging.
Is there a specific AI that you use personally?
Yes, so it's called virtualstagingai.com, I think. And I've had some friends that have used that one.
Is it free or is it
It's a paid for subscription monthly. And I think we're going to be using it a lot more. We're kind of just in the beginning stages of it. But we're going to be using it a lot more, I think.
Yes. Are most of your guys' properties, are they vacant or staged? Most of them are vacant.
Most of them are vacant,
Yeah. So there's typically like 2 scenarios that we have. Either it's vacant or there's still tenants in the property
Yeah.
when you go to take photos, or if it's for a sale, then it just kind of depends if the seller's in there, if it
Yeah.
has tenants, if it's vacant. So yeah, that's the typical. When it comes to lighting, it's not always ideal.
Mhm.
It could be cloudy, could be too bright, whatever the conditions are. How
Yeah.
do you handle those? Because I mean, your job doesn't stop with how the weather is. How
Yeah.
does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, really prioritizing, like asking the property manager or the agent, like when they need the photos by is really important because I can then kind of gauge, like, okay, I mean, Utah weather, we all know, is like the
Yeah.
most unpredictable thing ever.
Yeah.
And so there's been like a lot of moments, especially in the winter time, where I've had to reschedule. So when I do have those like not very ideal situations, I've had to bring like a studio strobe light out with me before to
Wow.
light the house because
Yeah.
it's like it's so dark outside.
Yeah.
It's like just not the greatest situation. Or
Do you use the lighting inside of a property? You, like no matter what it is, whether it's
Yes.
fluorescent,
Mhm.
you do okay.
I typically like doing that. I feel like
You ever change
it
light
makes
bulbs?
I haven't done that before. If I had the light bulbs in my car,
Yeah.
I would probably be smart. Yeah, I like to use the fluorescent lighting. I feel like it makes a house look alive, kind of what I was
Yeah.
saying earlier, like when it's all the lights are off. It's nice that natural light is the best light you can get, but I just feel like there's just going to be a lot of times when you're going to need the fluorescent lighting
Yeah.
too.
Gotcha. Do you do your own editing?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. Can you alter things to make it look a little better?
Yes.
If lighting conditions aren't optimal.
Yeah, so I have to do that a lot. Like that's probably the main thing that I'm working with when I edit is like making the lighting look as natural as possible. That's definitely like the biggest thing is with fluorescent lighting, like the biggest challenge that I feel like comes with it is that like if you look up at these lights right now, they're more yellow, they're more
Yeah.
warm, and then outside's pulling a more natural light.
Yeah.
And so you're dealing with a bunch of different colors that come
Yeah.
into that reflect off the walls. And so sometimes I'm having to like edit this like random purple hue that's coming into the
Yeah.
home. It's like people don't want their house to look purple. So it's just
Mhm.
making everything look very neutral and very like what our eyes truly see.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the cameras capture it differently than what our eyes truly see. And so it's just bringing the photo to a very neutral spot that represents
Yeah.
the property.
Yeah. TJ and I have had to deal with that when setting up our podcast. We bought these
Yeah.
lights and they have like 3 different colors.
Mhm.
There's like this white light, this blue light, and then like this yellow.
The first
tint.
time we were like, oh, yellow looks good. Like looking at it, and then
Yeah.
on the camera, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
doesn't
you're like,
look that
that's
good.
disgusting. Why did we choose that?
Yeah.
So,
Looking sickly.
yeah, no, it is true. And so, no, that's a great observation. When it comes to seeing other properties that are listed,
Mhm.
what are some common mistakes that you either see other photographers do or even other agents that
Yeah.
take it themselves?
Definitely coloring. I feel like you can probably say that you've hopped onto like the MLS and you've seen a listing where the grass looks like it's neon green.
yeah.
And then the sky looks like it's like the richest blue you've ever seen in the
Yeah.
world, and the house is like just this vibrant,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like it can be kind of appealing when you first
Yeah.
see it, and I've definitely thought that was maybe like the way to go when I
Yeah.
first kind of was experimenting with this. I was like, okay, up the saturation on this and this and this. But I just learned that making it look as true as it, just like making it look like a great home
Yeah.
and like keeping it very realistic looking represents everything so much better.
Yeah.
And it's inconsistent to have these like neon green lawns in
Yeah.
the fall. And like you can't keep up with it year
Absolutely.
round. It
Yeah.
just I see that all the time and
I've seen that. Like
Yeah.
you look at pictures. For me, it's like I'll see the pictures on the listing, and then I'll get the pictures back from the appraisal, and then I'll be like, oh, like there's
Completely
no way
different.
this is the same
Yeah.
house. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
And then it could even be disappointing when you go to it
Yeah.
in person
Absolutely.
when you're like, oh, I thought this was like the
It
most
was this.
beautifully
Yeah.
manicured
Showings-
lawn.
showings for sure.
And
can
it's
be
like,
affected.
this was not the thing
Yeah.
I saw.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That kind of leads me into my next question is I've seen trends on real estate photography, whether
Mhm.
it's doing that sunset
Yeah,
picture in the
yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
seen any popular trends that you dislike, trends that you think will probably continue in the future?
Yeah, I mean, the sunset one was a good one to bring up. That one always kind of makes me laugh, where it's just like this house is like lit, looks like it's 1 o'clock, and then in the afternoon, and then it
Yeah.
has like this like red and
Yeah.
purple sunset behind it, and it's like you can see in the reflections of the windows where it's just like you can see the blue normal sky behind
Yeah.
it. And so
Okay, so they're not real sunset photos now.
Yeah, TJ, sorry to
Yeah,
disappoint.
to
dang.
break it to you guys, it's a lie.
I know that was
Those
a
ones
selling
were
point
funny,
for
yeah.
all your properties.
Yeah.
You're like, if it doesn't
Oh
have
yeah,
that
watch out for the
Yeah.
sunset photos. They'll get you.
This will make it rent 3 times
Yeah.
faster.
The lights
for
are super
sure.
bright.
Yeah.
Those are funny.
But that's one that I'm not totally loving.
I don't think, do a lot of people love that though, you think? Like, I look at that and it just looks,
You'd be surprised how
Yeah.
I
many
thought it was
photos
real at
you
first
see.
too.
Yeah.
And then I found the feature in Photoshop and I was like, my world
Yeah.
shifted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
It is an interesting trend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen any others though that
Yeah.
you're like, this is cool, this is not cool?
Going back to the virtual staging, I feel like we're seeing that a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a lot more difficult to access because you were having to reach out to like a company that like they weren't using AI to do it. Like they had like people working on a computer and it would take a few days to get back to
Are
you.
they doing like Photoshop for it?
Yeah,
or-
they were
Yeah.
they were photoshopping like each piece of furniture, and I'm sure that looked great because
Yeah.
like AI can be kind of wonky sometimes.
Like, imagine
Yeah.
it's expensive.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's not easy.
And it would be like $30 per photo, and then
Wow.
like if you're wanting like a lot of photos staged, and
Yeah.
and it would go up from that price obviously. But that was like a starting point that I
Mhm.
would see. It definitely wasn't very accessible to people that were needing stuff on a budget.
Yeah.
And so I'm loving the AI shift of things where obviously it's not the most realistic sometimes. I think the technology is really improving, and I think it's something that we need to just run with it instead of run away from it, because it can totally give that people kind of like we were talking
Yeah.
about, like a really good idea of how it could flow with furniture. And I feel like anyone can do it because you literally click a button and
Yeah.
you have like 4 different options of a bedroom that's staged.
oh, that's cool. I thought it was like one of those things where like you have to like drag the thing in there.
No,
Okay,
it's
that's-
awesome. It's like 10 seconds and then
Yeah.
you have a photo with like
That's sweet.
a full bedroom
Yeah.
set up and furniture set. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So sometimes you take photos with tenants or owner occupants in it.
Mhm.
How do you set expectations with either the tenants or the homeowners, and how do you manage them so that you can get the best
Yes.
photos possible?
Yes. So I always try to go into it like wanting to capture the house the best that I can. And how I do that is I usually just say like, open the windows, turn on the
Yeah.
lights, and it's difficult because when people are in the moving process, things can be kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's just like letting them know to kind of just declutter as much as possible, because
Yeah.
when you go to a listing photo and it's like you're seeing like a person's 30 years of life
Yeah.
in this house, you're gonna see like just a lot of clutter, and that can
Yeah.
be kind of overwhelming in a listing. So it's just like setting the expectation of just keeping things as neat as possible. And I know some people are really great about it, some people aren't, and you can do a lot of great photoshopping as long as you're still representing the
Yeah.
house like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
how it is.
Yeah, I always tell people you don't know how much of a hoarder you are until you move. 'Cause then
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
that's
just
so
have
much
all this
stuff.
Yeah.
stuff that you didn't know, and it just piles up.
Mm-hmm.
When people are moving, are there certain areas that they're okay to put boxes that are less desirable from a prospect standpoint?
Yeah.
Say, oh, I don't care if the garage is full.
Yes.
As long as the kitchen, master, what are those rooms that
Yeah.
are the most important?
If there's a basement, usually like basement storage, I completely avoid always, because that's just like Christmas tree, canned food,
Yeah.
like Halloween decor. It's like those are always like rooms where I'm like, okay, people probably don't want to see that.
Yeah.
And you
Mhm.
can always mention it in the listing description, like plenty of storage in the basement.
Yeah.
people always have their garage. When they're moving, it's like their garage is basically their storage unit. And so I just kind of have learned to like ask them about it. I'm like, hey, how's the garage looking? And they're always typically going to say, not
full.
so good. Yeah. And so I get photos of the exterior of the garage so people know it's there. But the interior, I'm just like, we'll just pretend that doesn't exist for right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a third car garage, do you still do the same thing, or is it?
It kind of just depends on this, like the condition of it. So it's pretty much just like how they feel about it too. If they're not very comfortable with it, then I avoid it. But if they're like, oh yeah, do whatever, then I try to get photos of everything that I can. And then when it comes time to list it, if I'm like, okay, this closet's kind of looking a little bit chaotic, maybe we don't need it in the listing photo, then I kind of decide then. But that's usually kind of what I like to do.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. When it comes to experiences for yourself, what are like your favorite houses to shoot? What are some great experiences that you've had? But then I also want to counter with that, and do you have any like scary or things that have like just been terrible?
Yes, there's this one house that's kind of like hits both of those. It was in North Salt Lake, and it was on Capitol Hill area, and it was a beautiful area. And it was this house that was built in 1959, and it was literally not touched since 1959. Like, I'm talking blue shag carpet, orange shag carpet, red. It was like all of that, and like the walls were just had this like 1960s wallpaper, and the tile. But it was, I love like mid-century modern, so I love to see that, and it was like totally crazy, but it was so fun to see. Like, just like I felt like I was like taking a time machine to like this time period that you don't see that as much anymore. Especially I felt like it was pretty well preserved. Yeah. But I got to the basement of this house, and I was like, this is the scariest basement I have ever been in, because it was just like dark, and it just like smelled old, and I was just like, okay, I was like so spooked, but I was like, it was such a whirlwind.
Finished, or?
It was finished, but it was just the vibe was just off down there.
Somebody died down
No,
there.
for real. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope not. But it was just like, I could just totally feel it was just definitely an older home in there.
Yeah.
So, but I love going to Salt Lake and seeing all those homes, because I feel like they have like a lot of charm.
Yeah.
Whereas like down in Orem area, like these houses were built in like the 90s and the 80s, and you're not seeing as much of like diversity. You're seeing like a lot of like the similar homes, the split level homes that don't have that charm. But when you go to even like Provo area has a lot of fun charm, and I love going up to Heber, like that one.
In the Red Ledges community?
That house was really beautiful. That was fun, because that house was fully staged, and they had like a really fun design taste, and they had all this fun art, and it
was a beautiful home.
Yeah, it was just this beautiful home that overlooked a golf course, and they had just this view of like the mountains, and it was a really fun property to take photos of.
Get a real sunset photo?
Yes, a real sunset photo this time, actually.
So I know for that specific property, they wanted the whole package. What are some things that people can do photography-wise to get like that little extra advantage? And then what would your personal recommendation be for like the basics?
Okay, so just like when you say like the whole package, you mean like...
Yeah, so they had Matterport, they had drone. Like what are all those additional items that can be done?
Okay, so you can do a lot of things to market your properties outside of just the regular standard photos. Matterports are these little tiny cameras that you set in the middle of a room, and they spin around and they take a scan of the whole room. And I'm sure you guys have seen these when you've looked at listings where you can click and you jump to each room, and it's like you're taking a walkthrough tour. Those are really awesome. I feel like you can get a total real gauge on like how the property feels when you do that. I think it's totally worth it to do. I like videos also for properties, video tours. I think we're seeing those a lot more, especially with social media, because, you know, agents can post them online and kind of walk you through and give you a tour, and you can still get a great layout of the house and feel for it. People love doing drone photos. I think those are really awesome. I love looking at listings that have drone shots because you can actually understand the property. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like you can get as many photos of the backyard as you want, but when you have like a aerial view, you can actually understand how the property is laid out, which I feel like is really helpful for a visual mind.
Yeah, and also to kind of show those amenities that you may not like, necessarily know from photos. I know for certain listings I've seen pictures of like a swimming pool or like a park, but I'm like, okay, where is that in accordance to that house? Whereas a drone, you can say, oh, this is here. There's maybe like a Starbucks here, like a lake, whatever it might be. I feel like that's quite a bit of an advantage.
I think drone shots are super. I feel like if you have the option and the budget to do it, I think you should definitely do drone shots, because Matterport is great to get a walkthrough. I feel like we're seeing less of those now.
How much does Matterport cost?
I think it was, for us, I think it's like around $160 to $150. And then
that's not too bad.
And that's starts at 3,000 square feet. And this is with the specific company that we work through, so it could be different for other companies. But once you get above 3,000 square feet, they start charging you by the foot.
And we have a lot of properties that they can take photos of, so I mean, they might even be giving us a discount. I mean, I don't know. I don't have that relationship.
I think so. I should probably check on that.
So that's pretty sweet. It's nice to take photos of lots of properties.
Yeah.
Business relationships. If somebody was going to get into real estate photography, I know your setup's a little bit different than somebody that's just going out doing 1099 and looking for business.
Yeah.
But from your experience, what advice would you give somebody that's wanting to get into the industry?
Yeah, my advice would be literally just do it. I genuinely really love my job. Like, I get this great balance of seeing a lot of Utah and traveling and getting to meet awesome agents, owners, tenants. And I feel like a home is a really special place to be, and people love their houses. And so it's fun to kind of be able to, ask an owner, like, what do you love about this property? Like, what do you love to feature? And then they'll tell you a story about how they imported their floors from France or something like that. And it's just like, it's just those things that people are so proud to talk about that they don't really get an opportunity to talk about as much. And after I'm done taking photos, I can come back and sit in my nice little cozy chair at my desk and I can edit. And so it's not like I'm sitting at a desk all day or I'm up and at it all day. I get a really great variety where it feels like every day is honestly very different for me, and that's the kind of person that I am. Like, I can't be stuck in a routine. I mean, there is a routine within obviously this job, but it's something to where I feel like there's like
break it up.
There's a lot of exciting things that I get to look forward to, where I get to go to Springville today and I'm really excited to go look at these cute little apartments. And obviously just go and do it isn't the greatest advice, but I feel like just go on YouTube would be my actual advice. You can learn everything about cameras on YouTube in the most simple way possible. Like, I feel like I'm sometimes just like, it's so hard for me to learn visually sometimes. Like, sometimes I need to read it, but people on YouTube are so great on like hitting all those different types of learning, where I feel like they can just like really explain it to you in the sense of like, and it's just like they have everything for everything. Like, for every kind of camera that you have, like, I'm sure that there's a YouTube video about it on real estate too. So it's like there's so many niche things you can look up, and that's pretty much how I taught myself how to do, like, back then, like all the TikTok stuff, social media stuff, and then with social media or with real estate photography as well. Like, I felt like that really pushed me into learning it.
Did you do the same thing for editing? Use YouTube and everything? What editing software do you use?
So I use Adobe. I do Photoshop and Lightroom. I'm mostly in Lightroom. I think that's kind of how I was trained to edit photos. Some
Yeah.
people were more trained in Photoshop, but I think Lightroom is just a lot more convenient. And I don't have to Photoshop as many things
Yeah.
as I feel like some people have to. Like, I don't, like, because I'm not
You
supposed
do a good job with the photos in the first place.
Yes, oh my gosh. Because I'm not supposed to change a property.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, like, if the wall was red in a property and I was like, oh, that doesn't look good with the room, I can't change that.
Yeah.
Like, I have to keep it exactly how it is because it needs to represent what the property actually is. I need to keep that integrity. So I don't have to do a ton of that editing, which is really nice, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. You said that there's a routine within your, you said there's typically not a routine, but there is
Mhm.
one. Can you kind of go over how your day goes? Do you take photos in the morning, afternoon?
Yeah.
How do you schedule your day?
yeah, depending on the lighting is usually how my day goes, depending on the season as well.
Yeah.
Like right now in the summer, I want to get all my photos done before noon because it's so hot outside.
Yeah.
But also the sun is just the perfect angle usually. And just it's not as harsh when it's the middle of the day. The lighting is just so harsh and it's just really hard to kind of get an idea of like how everything looks realistically because it's just a mess. So typically I come into the office first, I get emails done, scheduling, I go out to properties, I take photos. Since we're kind of in a busier season right now, like I'm probably going to go to 6 different units today. And this is a busier day for me,
Yeah.
but typically it's like 1 or 2, sometimes 3. And then I'll come back and I just upload all the photos and then I just get to editing and I just try to like get as many properties done as I can in a day. While obviously keeping it like as good
Yeah.
of quality as I can do it. Because sometimes people are on more of an urgent schedule to get their properties leased.
Yeah.
And I really try to prioritize those people as well.
That's a lot of pictures. Like I'm just thinking, so like 6 units today. How many units do you typically do a week, do you think?
It really depends. Like every week has been like so different from
Yeah.
the next. I feel like usually I'm doing probably 5 to 10 a week on a busier time of the year, but
Yeah.
usually like 1 to 5 a week on a slower time of year.
Still, that's a lot of pictures.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So I know that, that is a ton of photos.
Mhm.
I know that things have changed in the sense of what people want to see,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to video.
Yeah.
Has the agenda of taking video changed your guys' strategy at all?
Yeah, we definitely want to incorporate videos as much as we can, and I haven't been as good as it because I've been busy like getting the photos done. But videos just really add this extra element to where people sometimes don't even need to come to a showing.
yeah.
I recommend everyone does go to a
Yeah.
showing.
Right, see the property
But
in person.
some people are busy and they're like, I don't have time to go see this. I need a place to live. This walkthrough, a video walkthrough, could literally tell you everything that you needed to know without having to go see it in person. And you could literally have someone sign a lease just by watching something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, saves everyone time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the property managers, they don't have to go out and show
Yeah.
it. They don't
Mhm.
have to make a trip out to
Yeah.
see it in person, and especially if somebody's working, right? They have
Yeah.
a 9 to 5, they can't see it till after hours,
Yeah.
and nobody likes to work after
No.
5 p.m.
No.
So, no, that's sweet. And then, is real estate photography the only thing you do, or do you do other photography for fun? What's Jade's?
Yes. I just got married, so my whole life was wedding planning. And after the wedding, I seriously am so excited because I can actually have hobbies again. So I usually I'm very artistic. I like make jewelry sometimes. I paint sometimes. I just love taking photos in general. Like I always have a tiny little point and shoot camera that I take with me like everywhere, and I just take photos with it because it's just so fun.
Yeah.
What is that camera?
It's a Canon SD. oh, I can't even remember what it's called. It's old.
It's like one of those like little like power shot.
Yeah, it's a power shot camera, and it is just so
Those are
fun
cool.
because I don't know. I just feel like iPhone photos are great,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
photos taken on any other camera just seem to have so much more charm to it, and so I just love doing that. But yeah, I love taking photos of my husband's shoes. He does custom shoes, and
That's
I
cool.
love helping him with that, marketing that. So I do everything but nothing at all, it feels like.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
coming. I feel like I've learned a ton from just speaking with you, and I'm sure everybody
Yeah.
else listening has. But yeah, thank you so much, Jade.
Yeah, I was really happy when you guys asked me to do this. I feel like it's a great thing to talk about and educate people on, and having great quality photos shows that you care, and I feel like that's really what
Yeah.
everyone wants to feel, is just that they're cared about, and that their property is cared about, and that their investments are cared about. So
Yeah.
thank you guys for having me on the podcast. It was a blast.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you guys for listening. The One Stop Real Estate Podcast is a production of Vision Real Estate.
I'm TJ Shelley with First Colony Mortgage, NMLS 1674331, with First Colony Mortgage, company license 3112.